pleasure. Susan and I have been friends for, 35, 40 years. Neither of us can exactly remember. But it's such a pleasure to show with Susan. Obviously, we love each other, and we've been crossed paths many, many times. And I think Carol was the only time in Dante's life that he agreed to do something that his pop wanted him to do. But it's really, I really appreciate all of you coming. And Susan and I have a little dialogue, but please feel free to ask questions about anything that you would like to ask about. You have us here.
Gosh, it's hard to know where to begin. I do think that Emily has thought a lot about our relationship and the relationship of our work to one another's, and the relationship to our work to the glass movement as a whole. And I think some of that comes out in the catalog, but maybe you could at some point add some. What happened was just so fluid, and it's always been very fluid with Paul and me. I had a studio in Austin, Texas. I was painting and drawing, and somebody came down the street, an engineer, and said, I'm starting a glass studio, and would you do some drawings? And so I went and did that. I quit art school and I fell in love with the material. And then, after a while, of doing a lot of commissions for people, I decided that I wanted to make glass be an art material for me. I want, the same way that a painter thinks, what is it that I have to say to contribute to the world? And so I decided that I was going to X out old ways of looking at craft, of looking at stained glass, of looking at glass in general. I mean, I knew this much about something that was huge. So I started doing the X panels. One is in the window that's two-sided. The other side is, quote, the front side, but they were intended to be both-sided. But this was the first X. This is called hexaplex X. It has 6 X's. And so it was meant to be not in architecture. It was meant to be seen at night. It would be one painting at night and another thing during the day. So this whole idea about an 1/8 inch thickness of glass being a huge depth was really interesting to me. And the piece over here was 1980, 78, and that is in reflected, transmitted, and it's just total. That's called Extinction, Xtinxion, and it has plastic in it. At that time in 1980, it was so easy to break the rules because they were just like so there since like the 1200s or something. Yeah. And a lot of the techniques we're using have been around forever. But I was looking at a magazine called Glass Magazine that I got, and I would look at these people's pictures of their work, and I went, "Oh my God, what are they doing?" And so I called up Paul and asked him. He lived in Seattle. I lived in Austin, Texas. I knew nobody in the world, and I said, "Would you come down and do a workshop?" And he said, "Yes." I mean, everybody was just like, let's help each other. And it was great because we don't have any examples. In the catalog, there's an example of the stained glass that he did. But basically, it's a painting with glass using stained glass techniques that weren't intended to be used in that way. And
I always called it strange glass.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of history that doesn't have to do anything with contemporary art or ideas about it. So, I mean, like that piece over there,
Chernobyl cocktail.
Chernobyl cocktail is basically leaded glass on a piece of wood, but it's glass, and I don't know why I did this, but I like the idea of the line being the lead. In this case, it's actually copper, and then it has a surface on it that's patinaed, and then the glass. So this is. I was making this piece, and it was at the same time that over the news they talked about the Chernobyl disaster, and the piece, it was like I channeled it, which is not a great thing, but so I just went with the idea of that, hearing it on the news, and the birds flying away, the dead birds flying away. But anyway, and this was, yeah.
Well, traditionally, glass was a well-kept secret, and for about 5,000 years. Then our generation came along and thought we would steal the fire and do something that hadn't been done before. Very few of us came out of an art school or an art background. We just got hooked on glass, a group of us, and what we saw unlimited possibilities for it. And stained glass, which both Susan and I started with before we started making sculptural pieces, traditionally was used as a decorative art. It wasn't used to tell a story except in the churches where you got to see the saints suffering. It's like, so we came along and thought, well, we can do more than that with it. Plus, we can use car headlights and Xerox photographs and plastic and glitter. And
It was really
all
easy
kinds
to
of
break the
things.
rules.
It was really easy to break the rules. So, there was endless possibilities because we didn't know what had been done or what we should do. But the beauty of what we call the studio glass movement is that we all started kind of in the 60s or 70s. And because we didn't have a past, we were cooperative instead of competitive. And so we built the whole glass movement on cooperation because we were all wildly excited about what we were doing and the potential we saw for what we could do. And we were going all over the world infecting people with our enthusiasm. So we made something happen, and evidently it's here to stay. It's been 50 years now, and it looks pretty likely it's here to stay. Can't say that about Dadaism or Futurism or several other art movements, but we've made something happen that's here to stay. So the thing about glass, I'm going to try and make this simple and short. It's a unique material. It captures light. We say that glass eats light. It's the only material available on our planet Earth that does that. Technically speaking, light travels at 186,000 miles per second. When it goes through glass, it slows down to 122,000 miles per second. We can't see that difference, but we can see that piece of glass on the beach sparkling with light. That's what glass does. It captures the light. And so, like a cast piece like that with the U, it captures the light, magnifies it, manipulates it. Susan's pieces, the light goes through, they're painted on both sides. It manipulates the light. It makes the painting come to life more. The gossip piece in the window of mine, it's mirrored behind, so all the light that hits the surface bounces back through the paint and the color and makes that blue in the background really pop out. That's unique with glass. For me personally, I like to tell a story in my work. My work is generally figurative and narrative. Susan's is also. That's how we communicate to each other as human beings. We tell each other stories. I'm not particularly interested in making a point or a message in my work, and often my work's left purposely open enough for you to interpret. It's like a Rorschach test. It's what you want to see in it. I'm not trying to tell you to save the Indians or the whales or feed the poor. I don't have a message. I'm just using a narrative to communicate. Like I say, the way we enrich our lives by telling each other stories. Not important, the story. What we call reality is not reality, it's our perception. And our perception is based on our past experiences. We all share the same emotions. It's common universal language. So, yeah, I have emotional triggers in my work, things that, everybody understands. Licking, the tongue sticking out. Everybody understands that, right? I don't have a message to tell you that tongues are better than ears or any of that. So it's, I want you to look at my work. I want to provoke you to think. Glass traditionally was not made to make you think. It either was made to decorate the environment or to convey a message. Like I say, the saints in the churches suffer.
Well, I think as soon as you put an image in glass, it's beyond just looking at the material. Dale Chihuly, it was kind of a minimalist approach to the first people that worked with glass, but very few of them ever put imagery on the glass. And as soon as you put a mark or a letter or a picture, then you're talking about something else besides just the material. And I can't even give you an example. Well, yeah, there's not an example of that here. But so that was unusual at the time to try to say something with it that other than just appreciating the beauty of the glass. And so that's something that Paul and I have had in common for a very long time and still do with our work. And it's not like we consciously said, oh, I'm doing this now, what are you doing? We never did that. It was just that we kind of always fed each other in an unspoken way through the work, through loving the work, through that's hilarious. And not only is it hilarious, it's got this beautiful matte black and shiny red surface, or vice versa. That, so there is the beauty of the glass, but it's not, that's not all there is there. And then also to put imagery on glass, there's this idea that you're putting ideas in glass that's a fragile material. And so to me, it accentuates the tenuousness of actually, that something could break, that an idea could break, that, it has a lot of metaphor and a lot of...
Well, one of the things that's interesting is you were talking about glass and the whole idea of glass with light coming through. But you look at a piece like Lycan, light doesn't come through it. I mean, sometimes glass can be opaque.
Surface.
And was that intentional on your part when you use opaque as opposed to translucent or transparent?
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, the other piece, U, which is spelled Y-E-W after the U tree, not you, like me and you. It's all clear glass. When we first put it on a white pedestal, it kind of disappeared against the white. So we put it on black so you could see the surface texture, which is from a live mold from a yew tree. I actually cut branches off the yew tree.
Is that your piece?
Yes.
That's not why I asked.
Well, the yew tree is interesting because nearly extinct. It grows in the northwest of the United States, but it's always been kind of considered underbrush. So it's like clear that out of the way while we cut the redwoods and the cedar, and get the money out of the woods. And now they find out it has cancer curing properties. It's really good for curing cancer. So now they're planting it and growing it. But a woman that was a patron of mine, Carol Margolis, had them growing in her yard. And one day I said, Carol, I'd really like to trim your yew tree. You mind if I take a few cuttings? And she goes, yeah, I mind. Don't you touch my yew tree. So, okay, I asked. Instead of usually I just go out there when nobody's looking. But a few months later, if you don't ask, I can't say no. Isn't that the old rule? A few months later, she called me up and said, the gardener's here and he's pruning yew trees if you want some cuttings. I rushed out and swept them all up, took them home and laid them out and took a rubber mold off and then a wax mold and then made the casting. But it's a subtle detail. But, in the right light and in the right display, it really comes to life. You see that it's a surface of a living organism. And I try and use live molds on different projects I've done throughout
they're dead
career.
by the time you get to them. They were living.
No, they're alive because
The
I've
trees are
taken molds off of ocotillo cactus for
Oh, okay.
George Russell, from the Russell
Okay,
Investment Group.
I'm
I
corrected.
his
I didn't
house.
get
So,
that.
I buy all the Ocotillo, run them through the bandsaw. I got about 5 days before they mold.
Okay.
But while they're green and fresh, I take my rubber molds off of them. And then I can take waxes. I can manipulate the waxes the way I want.
But that's interesting, because I don't know that those of us who collect glass or know about glass think about you all as mold makers. And mold making is an entirely additional skill.
It's whole nother step. That's
Unique.
right.
Yeah, that's an inspiring thing about Paul, is that he's always just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. He just does it. He doesn't like take a class. He just like figures it out and does it, and then he teaches it.
And I have made a few mistakes. And a few expensive ones. It's like I do a lot of sideshows. People go, "Don't you ever have a failure?" And I go, "Of course I have a failure, but I don't put them in my slideshow." What are you thinking? You don't talk about the time you went bankrupt. It's like, what are you thinking? Everybody has some failures. You hide them. So, questions? Anything you want to know
About the pieces here?
our friendship, our career, our kids?
Guess about your friendship when I'm sitting next to your friend.
Our kids
How did
here.
you two meet?
I'm sorry, what?
How did you two meet?
Paul asked me to be his teaching assistant at the Pilchuck Glass School after I invited him down to Texas to give a lecture in Austin.
Yeah.
And so things just blossomed like that.
Yeah, as soon as I met her and saw her talent, I went, this is phenomenal. Here's a strong woman, a vivacious woman full of talent and working her butt off trying to make something happen. So yeah, I brought her to Pilchuck, and the next year they asked her to teach, and they never invited me back.
No, that's not true. That's not true. But both of us have been very supportive of the school and have taught there dozens and dozens of time. And Pilchuck is a school where anybody really can learn about glass at the beginning or at the highest level. You all could go if you wanted to find out more about it.
Susan, please tell us about
Wyatt is so Wyatt now.
Collaboration with Richard.
and say what we have done, what Gala has
That's right.
also
I mean,
contributed to.
now not only has Gala been so important to supporting anything that about glass in the LA area, but for me in particular, featuring or supporting work or shows that we've been in at Cal State Fullerton, any number of places, and but also you give scholarships to kids from the LA area who want to go to Pilchuck to take classes. And Wyatt has been working for free at Pilchuck on the staff for 3 years now, and last year he got offered the scholarship that you gave him, and it was not connected to him being our son or anything. And he got to take a glass class with a very, very good artist. And now he just received he's going to be an artist in residence at Haystack, and he also is teaching at Pilchuck. Working at Pilchuck again. And when he goes up to Seattle, he stays with Paul. Has fed him a lot of propaganda that makes it more difficult to live with our son.
Susan, the reason I brought this up, because you have no idea how many people ask me, so what do you do with the money that we give to Gala? So now you know that's part of the money, what we do with the money.
Because Ann and I are like sisters. Could you, and I get to speak sometimes when she's speaking, could you tell us a little bit about how the Pilchuck experience has shaped your art or moved you ahead or otherwise impacted you?
Yeah. Living with a glass artist my whole life, it seems like it was kind of bound to happen. But going up there 3 years ago for the first time and working as an intern just really opened my eyes to an entirely new material, which is an incredibly seductive material. I was totally sucked into the art of blowing glass and some of the ancient Venetian traditions. And I'm not skilled by any means to do that. It takes quite a while to learn how to blow glass with the skill that the Venetians do. But I've incorporated all of that into my ceramic work, and I've tried to emulate a lot of the skills and traditional forms that glassblowers have used in their work, and now it's kind of turning into like a Venetian ceramic series. But this last summer, like my mom was saying, I got my first chance to take a glassblowing class, and now I just see endless possibilities for including glass in my work, whether or not it's via these ceramic goblets or with my other sculptural work. I think there's going to be a lot of possibilities that have opened up just from 1 year of being there. So, and I'm going back this summer too, after my artist in residency, to go wash dishes.
And he gets to blow glass for washing dishes.
That's right, that's not a bad pay.
It's worth it.
And he's been a good influence on me. Always saying, don't do that, Paul, act your age.
What would be your most difficult period of doing glass? What would you call your most challenging time?
You mean in terms of like just working and being an artist, working with the material and what was, I'd say the 80s were the best, because people were just getting turned on to the material, and artists were getting better at working with the material. I'd say the 90s, it sort of became, this is not so, I mean, not that I was trying to get traction just off the glass, I was still excited about it, but I think the 90s things kind of turned a little bit, and it was more about concept, and I think conceptual art started coming bigger into the world of making. And I think any artist is going to have a period where you have your vision that you're working on, and for 5 or 8 years there's going to be another thrust that's going on in the ideas of art or sculpture, and your kind of takes second, you step back from what is new now. I mean, we're moving so fast now. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I think that both of us just keep making because we have to, and we need to, and it resonates with some people, and it's very important. And
Our generation came along, we were kind of the dinosaurs. We weren't taught, we were self-taught. We learned how to paint and how to mix colors, make red come out of the kiln red, and how to blow glass. And we were full of piss and vinegar. We were wildly excited with the potential that we saw. The second generation came along, people like Bill Morris and my son Dante and Ben Moore and that. They were taught by people like Lino Talia Pietra and the Swedes and that came to Pelchuk, and so they learned the right way. So they got more focused on technique, and making bigger pieces and Calmo and Latticino and all the techniques that were available, and they got really good at technique. And the third generation has come along now, Wyatt and people like that, younger people, and they pick up technique so fast like that I see that they're more focused back on ideas. So I see, and I find that very encouraging. That's what's happening. But if you look at the young people in the glass world, they're focused back on ideas. They have conceptual ideas, they have sculptural ideas, They're doing things that haven't been done before. I find it very exciting in the glass world.
Like the 3D and the technical, all of that is going into art schools now.
I just spent 2 months teaching at the Rhode Island School of Design in the winter session. And I will say that it's a super rigorous school. I was in the glass department, and they don't do anything without, let's have a crit. I mean, it's just, so there's nothing that can be like sort of held back in your mind, because whatever it is you've even not thought about or that you've just intuitively made is up for examination, and you have to be able to be accountable for it or talk about it. But it is a very conceptually oriented school, and the work is not about the making of a beautiful thing. It's about the whole process that goes through in the making, and that it's very there's a big connection now also with science and design and the making of art. That if you study the basic structures of science, that you'll come up with systems that you can then design objects or environments that are based on the systems of nature. Also, there's a lot of film, animation, and video of projecting through glass, a glass that has imagery on it. I taught an imagery and glass class, and I had students, with projectors, this big projecting movies that they made onto text that they had sandblasted into the glass, surfaces like this that then became a vehicle for projection and reflection of glass. Same kind of ideas we're using, but they're going, it's now become all mixed up and wonderful, and still, still I believe that this 1/8 inch surface of glass, this 1/8 inch, even if it's just commercial glass, has this incredible depth to it that reflects light, transmits light, bounces light back, projects, glows, captures it, goes through. So, these are all things that even though I couldn't teach them how to make film and use the projector onto the glass, I was making them aware of the qualities of the glass that they could use to conceive their ideas. And so, yes, I think it's very exciting. It's not over. Glass, to me, is still a new material, in terms of an art material. And what you're seeing here, if you're going back to 1980, is the beginning of something that was rule-breaking then, and it continues to happen.
For me, you're looking at some of my favorite pieces that I pulled off the market or never even put up for sale because I saw them as a success for various reasons. Why an artist sees something as a success. First of all, you're the only critic you should listen to. It's nice if your mom likes the work or if somebody else likes the work. It's nice, but it's up to you. Did you put your vision into reality? Are you satisfied with what you created? Do you feel good about it? There are different measures of success. For instance, when I started making the kinetic rocking pieces in 1991, a museum tour from the Metropolitan of New York came out to Seattle and came through a bunch of artists' studio and came through my studio. I had the rocking pieces laid out on the table, and while I was talking to them, I reached over and whacked one of them, and it started rocking. And this woman grabbed the edge of the table and went, "Make it stop." And I reached over and stopped it, and I go, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "I think I'm going to throw up." I knew I had a winner. If I could make a piece of glass that wanted to make you throw up, I knew I was onto something. So there are different measures of success. But, it's like Carol says, a lot of the work is Susan's and mine is culled out of our private collections because they're the ones we think made a step forward in growing our talent. And if you have passion, you work a lot. Passion drives you on, whether you're a mass murderer or a painter. The unfortunate thing is we don't teach our kids passion, so a lot of people substitute drama instead of passion. But if you have passion, you work harder, and then you grow your talent. When you see something, you took a step into the unknown, something that hadn't been done before, and when it works, you feel really good about it. So that a lot of the work you see in this show were milestones in Susan's growing her talent, or in me growing my talent. Making kinetic sculptures out of glass. Most people would say that's really a dumb idea because we're taught all our life, don't touch that, it's glass, But when you make one that works and you see it moving and you see the light moving back and forth in the piece, and I make some that makes sound, it's actually speaking to you and it's alive, it makes everything else in the room look asleep, hanging on the wall or sitting on the pedestal, and you get really excited. about those steps in your career where you feel like you've moved forward. So this show really represents that.
How do you teach passion? I have 4 little grandchildren, and they run around, they play with a Wii,
Yeah.
they do all this computer things. How do you teach passion?
Well, I'm Italian, it's in our DNA.
Okay. Just Jewish and American.
What was the high point of your experience with these Fairfax High School students?
Well, I gave them an assignment that they had to do a self-drawing, a self-portrait. And, I always joked that I used to smoke cigarettes, so my self-portrait was a ball of steel wool with a cigarette sticking out. One of my students one time did a self-portrait holding a towel, a white towel up, so all you saw was 2 sets of fingers and a rectangle of white. It's like, you could get professional help for this problem. It's really revealing when you ask teenagers
Self-portrait?
to do a self-portrait.
Self-portrait?
Yeah.
Self-portrait?
Right.
Self-portrait?
And, so
Self-portrait?
some of them actually did really, really interesting self-portraits. I taught in the MFA program at San Francisco State in the early 70s. So I only had graduate students for 4 years, that's all. I never went to art school except to teach. I have degrees in philosophy and literature. But I'm teaching in the MFA program at San Francisco State. And then one year they come to me and they go, Paul, we have an idea for an experimental program. Would you be willing to teach in a experiment we call College for Kids? Could we bring 6th graders to San Francisco State?
Wow.
I go, absolutely. I love kids. You bring me all the 6th graders you got. They're bouncing off the walls. They're full of energy. They're naive. They're innocent. They don't think they're super cool. They don't think they've seen it all, And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I really believe in education. It's been an important part of my life. I really believe in education. And, it's like, why do we do that to children? I did a public art project for a high school in Washington, Rochester, and I told the committee, they go, well, we want to see a drawing of what you're going to do. I go, I'm not going to give you a drawing because I'm going to do cast glass windows. I'm going to work in the sand directly. It's yearbook. There's going to be tile after tile of faces that I'm going to make up spontaneously because I want to emphasize spontaneity, creativity, humor, and spirit. All the things you guys have taken out of the students. And the principal and the teacher go, well, that's not fair. I go, not fair. I'm just being frank with you. You got all these kids sitting there. It's basically you're teaching them what to think instead of how to think. Our kids are our future. We need to give them every tool that we can give them. They're our future, So it's like, why are we doing that in the charter schools? And you don't want to get me started on politics. It's like, why are we doing that to our children? We got problems we need our children to solve. We had our day. It's their day. Next.
Well, back to that idea about passion, I think that you have to just really focus on what you think you believe, like about creativity or about how to view the world in a more, inventive or beautiful, creative way, and then share that with your children. Even if it sounds dumb or it sounds ridiculous and untrue, but just the fantasy of the inventive mind, just that you pass that on to them or you share it with them, and they act like they don't care, but it's a seed that's been planted to just, whether you're an artist or you don't have to be an artist to do that. You're here tonight, so you already have an interest in art and what happens with artists thinking and what's the result of what they make and think. So you've already got that interest, you've already got that going on. To pass that on to just say anything is possible. There is no right or wrong about creative thinking. don't judge, don't, you know, what can you do that's really creative with the we, that's not what they're used to, you know, that doesn't follow the rules, that becomes something that they could turn into a video performance with the family, that's, you know, turn it around, all this technology, so that it becomes something inventive and new and possible, you know, and the opposite of what they and their friends have been told. You know, I think that's the way, you know, we think as artists and as creative people. So that stuck with me, what you were saying. But
Again, a generalization. I used to tell my students, the hardest thing in life is to figure out what you want to do. And the easiest thing in life is to find a reason not to do it.
okay, that's for sure.
So, you know, you figure out what you want to do, start doing it.